seconds. That is how long Delta Force had to clear a basement containing 700 hostages and 30 extremists before the worst happened. The math was impossible. The extremists had turned Syria's al-Sina'a prison into a fortress, mixing themselves among the hostages. Allied forces had been trying to retake it for 8 days, and all they had to show for it were dozens of fallen fighters who hadn't even reached the main building yet. Now 12 Delta operators were about to attempt what hundreds couldn't. 2 Blackhawks descended through darkness, their pilots flying without lights while using night vision to navigate through tracers that arced up from the compound below like deadly fireworks reaching for the sky. The prison had become a symbol of the extremist group's resurgence, and Washington wanted that symbol destroyed tonight. The only thing stopping them was 200 heavily armed fighters waiting below. Fast ropes deployed into the chaos, and operators descended through incoming fire that started before their boots even touched the dirt. The nearest cover was a destroyed truck 60 meters away across open ground that might as well have been on the moon for how exposed it left them. Half the team immediately returned fire, their suppressing rounds forcing extremist fighters to duck behind window frames and abandon their positions momentarily, creating precious seconds for the other half to sprint through the gauntlet. 7 seconds of running that stretched like hours when every step could be your last. They reached the truck as rounds punched through its metal frame, the destroyed vehicle their only protection as they approached the compound wall, where 8 feet of concrete topped with razor wire stood between them and their objective. The breaching specialist worked with the efficiency of someone who'd done this 100 times before, placing charges while his partner watched their 6, both knowing that 200 fighters were already converging on their position. The explosion tore a jagged hole through the wall, and the first operator through was lightly wounded, but kept moving because momentum was life and hesitation meant death in a place like this. As they fought their way in, the team leader's radio crackled with information that changed everything.
Eagle 6, intercepted communications indicate they know you're coming. They're consolidating hostages in the basement. No air support available for 90 minutes.
90 minutes might as well have been 90 years. The entire operation would be over in 20, one way or another. The prison yard stretched before them, 100 meters of open concrete with every window above containing at least 1 fighter waiting for Americans to enter their carefully prepared ambush. The guard tower on their left offered the only elevated position for overwatch, but reaching it meant another death-defying sprint through overlapping fields of fire. 2 operators didn't need to discuss it. Years of training had taught them to communicate with just a glance. They broke toward the tower while their teammates turned every window into a suppression target, forcing extremist fighters to choose between returning fire and an early retirement. Rounds sparked off the metal ladder as the first operator climbed, each rung representing a calculated risk between speed and exposure. He reached the platform and hauled his partner up, both immediately setting up their firing positions with practiced efficiency. Through specialized optics, the sniper could see the entire battlefield. Heat signatures glowing in windows, fighters moving between positions, and something else that changed their tactical situation. The prison sat on sloped ground, and from this elevated position he could see that the north wing's basement was partially exposed on the eastern side, its reinforced concrete wall visible at ground level where the terrain dropped away. The sniper relayed this intelligence while beginning his methodical work. 1 carefully aimed shot, 1 fighter neutralized. Adjust for wind, acquire next target. His spotter called out positions in the flat, emotionless tone of someone who had turned precision shooting into an algebra lesson. Meanwhile, the assault element crossed the yard in tactical bounds, but halfway across they noticed something disturbing. Fresh footprints in the dust, all leading toward the north wing. The extremists had consolidated everyone into one location, which meant either a last stand or something far worse. At the admin building, the team leader made a critical decision based on the sniper's intelligence about the exposed basement wall. 6 operators would enter the north wing and clear from above, driving any fighters downward. The other 6 would circle to the eastern side where the basement wall was exposed, set breaching charges, and prepare for a coordinated assault. 2-pronged attacks were Delta's specialty: divide the enemy's attention, multiply their confusion. But before they could execute, movement erupted from the north wing, dozens of fighters charging across open ground in a desperate assault. The operators formed a defensive line and returned fire, watching the distance shrink. 30 meters, 20. At 15 meters, precision replaced volume. At 5 meters, the attack was finally stopped. The north wing entrance stood open now, smoke pouring from within like the building itself was exhaling. Whatever was happening inside, they were running out of time to stop it. What happened next? We can't show it all here without YouTube slapping this video with a warning, but we can show you on Patreon. To watch the full-length video completely uncensored, subscribe to my Patreon page, where there are no restrictions on what we can tell and show you there. Scan the code or use the link in the description now to watch the full video. The North Wing's entrance exhaled smoke like a dragon's mouth, the extremists having turned the building into a toxic maze by burning everything flammable with accelerants. The interior team of 6 operators entered while their counterparts circled toward the exposed basement wall, both elements connected by radio, but separated by concrete and chaos. The first operator through recognized the trap immediately. Furniture arranged to create fatal funnels, forcing anyone entering to expose themselves. But the extremists had planned for soldiers who would come straight ahead, not Delta Force operators who thought in 3 dimensions. Room by room, they cleared the first floor using thermal imaging that transformed smoke-filled darkness into a comprehensible battlefield of heat signatures and movement. Empty cells told stories of hasty evacuation, abandoned equipment suggested panic, and in the last room they found 50 Allied guards locked behind bars, some wounded, all expecting the worst. An operator cut the locks while another maintained security, and the freed guards immediately provided crucial intelligence. They moved everyone down there an hour ago, 700 at least, and they raided our armory. They have our equipment now, body armor, helmets, everything, mixed in with the hostages. You won't know who's who until someone starts shooting. The team leader radioed the exterior team.
Basement confirmed. 700 hostages, 30 fighters and stolen gear. Set charges for simultaneous breach on my signal.
The response came back immediately.
Roger. Charges set on eastern wall, ready on your mark.
The interior team pushed toward the second floor, finding it suspiciously quiet. That particular silence that makes experienced operators trust their instincts over their eyes. Using a mirror to check around corners, they saw the trap. Furniture positioned to create overlapping fields of fire. Approaches blocked to funnel attackers into predetermined zones. They split into 2 groups and flowed down the hallway from both ends simultaneously, turning the defenders' own ambush against them. 20 seconds of intense, precise action later, the hallway was clear, and they stood before their final obstacle. A basement door welded shut with industrial equipment. The heat had reached dangerous levels throughout the building, equipment starting to malfunction, radio signals breaking up from interference. The smoke alone would make the building unlivable in minutes. The extremists had turned the entire structure into a countdown timer. The breaching specialist set his charges while the team stacked up, everyone knowing what waited below. 700 innocents and 30 armed extremists mixed together like a tactical nightmare designed to make clean shots impossible. The team leader keyed his radio.
Exterior team, stand by for simultaneous breach. The countdown began. 3, 2, 1.
The basement door vanished in smoke and twisted metal at the exact moment the eastern wall exploded inward, flooding the underground space with dust and confusion. 700 hostages sat packed together while 30 extremist fighters in stolen armor spun between 2 breach points, their leader shouting,
"We've been waiting for you! 10 seconds to leave!"
But Delta Force didn't need 10 seconds. They needed only the 2 it took for both teams to flow into the basement from opposite directions. The extremists found themselves caught between 2 elements of Delta Force, each team's movements perfectly synchronized despite the chaos. The hostages began scattering in panic, some dropping flat, while others ran for the walls, creating the critical separation the operators needed to distinguish between threats and innocents. An extremist in full armor charged the stairwell team, confident in his stolen protection, but the operators had trained for exactly this scenario, multiple angles bringing him down with coordinated precision. One fighter grabbed a hostage and began backing toward a corner while trying to maintain his field of fire. The Delta operator tracking him through his sights waited with the patience of a hunter who knew his prey would eventually make a mistake. When the fighter shifted to navigate debris on the floor, barely 2 inches of target exposed, the operator took his shot with the confidence that comes from countless hours of training. The hostage fell forward unharmed, immediately pulled to safety by another operator who then returned to the fight without missing a beat. Another fighter tried the same tactic, but made a mistake. Raising his weapon to aim exposed him for that critical half-second delta needed. 2 more extremists pushed forward wearing stolen armor, but the operators had already adapted their tactics, placing shots with surgical precision. The extremist leader, realizing his plan was unraveling faster than he could adjust, tried to reach the largest group of hostages, but was neutralized before he could close the distance, his grand last stand becoming just another failed operation. 30 seconds after the dual breach began, the basement fell silent except for the crying of the hostages and the heavy breathing of exhausted operators. As they began the massive evacuation effort, one hostage approached an operator and said in accented English,
"You came back for us."
The operator, still covered in dust and debris from the fight, simply nodded. Outside, the sun was rising on a destroyed prison, marking the end of the extremist group's largest operation since their territorial defeat. An operation that had been stopped by 12 Delta Force operators who had done what they always do, turn impossible situations into successful missions. Bye for now.